Okay, just thought we'd open up there with a little joke. We're returning to the cloud, give everyone on the staff a pair of these wings, because people out there, the cloud has got various names and descriptions. So I just thought for the benefit of everyone, I would give us the cloud computing definition from the Oxford Dictionaries, which basically says it is a network of remote servers accessed via the internet and used to store, manage and process data in place of local servers or personal computers. In short, there are still physical servers. There is still very much technology in action. They're just not in the cupboard under your stairs, in the office. They're just not on your own premises. So we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible. So what I'd like to do is, before we kick off, is ask everyone, do you believe that your business is right for the cloud? So if you wouldn't mind just responding, yes, no, or maybe, and I will then be able to share the feedback from the poll. Okay, 72% have voted. So if we could give just a couple more ticks and then we will close the poll. Okay. Perfect. Just to share the stats with you from that initial poll, 33% have said yes, which is great. 20% have said no, and the remainder 47% have said not sure. So let's follow this through. When we talk about hosting, where are these cloud computers hosted? Well, believe it or not, they are hosted in very nondescript buildings. This is actually a picture of the external of our data center in London, the Vertus data center. And hopefully the first thing you'll notice is there are security fences. It is completely nondescript because of the nature of what is held inside. There's security fences, there's retinal scanners. We literally cannot get access to that building unless it has been pre-approved. We cannot walk in that building unless we are walked and accompanied. We cannot do anything in that building without it being reviewed and assessed by the internal engineering team and internal security. So first and foremost, when you move into a physical data center, you are moving into a highly secure, highly resilient, and in our case, purpose-built building that has multiple power feeds, multiple internet feeds. So you're actually getting access to technology and resilience that would be beyond most of our businesses' ability to deploy internally. Inside, you will find floors and rows of technology. So this is a typical image of the internal workings within a data center. You will see rows and rows of racks of servers, switches, but what you're also buying into or getting access to is full air conditioning systems, fire suppression systems, and again, multiple power feeds with generators. So the whole idea within these buildings is that your data is not only secure, not only being kept resilient, but you have what they call N+1 failover. That you have at least another physical component waiting for failover in case something happens. Again, this is technology that would be very, very difficult to replicate on premise. So, in terms of cloud computing, in the IT industry, we like to be mysterious, and there are various terms and forms, but to keep this at a non-technical level, the two main cloud computing models that are out there would be known as software as a service and infrastructure as a service. To give you an example, software as a service would be the likes of Spotify, Netflix, Office 365, iTunes, Photobox. So services that probably in our personal lives we would access remotely from our phone or from our tablet at home without giving it a thought. We've some clients that will host their Sage, their Pegasus, their Act, their CRM. Again, they're partaking of software as a service. And what they are doing is they're renting or consuming that service based on a monthly bill. The next level up from that is what would be known as infrastructure as a service, IaaS. And that's where organizations will basically say, well, instead of just you looking after my CRM or my financials or my backups, I would now look, I've come to that stage in a refresh where I'm now considering, do I need to physically have any servers on premise? And that is known as infrastructure as a service. However, in the IT industry, things have morphed, and there are now more what we would call cloud derivatives. So, for example, patch management as a service, which would be a service that allows you to download security updates across multiple applications so that you're reducing the risk of vulnerabilities. Backup as a service is quite often the toe in the water for some organizations, where instead of taking the backup home, you offload that onto a secure cloud platform. And we're seeing an increasing demand for what we would call DR as a service. So dependent on your customers, dependent on your business model, you might need to be able to enact a disaster recovery plan and want to utilize the cloud platforms to enable you to do that. From a deployment perspective, there are typically three types of cloud deployment options. So to put that into context, you would have what people would call public cloud. You would then have the reverse of that, which is private cloud, and then in between is hybrid. Public cloud would be where it's the most common type of cloud deployment, and Office 365 would be a prime example of that. So if you imagine an apartment block, you share the lift, you share the car park, you share the electricity, you share the water, but you have your own individual apartment. You have your own passcode to get into your apartment. That is your apartment, but there are certain services that you share. That would be an ideal way of describing the public cloud. Okay, so you're sharing the servers, you're sharing the storage, but in a secure way, in what they call a virtual way. Private cloud, for those clients that maybe are dictated by data security, financial institutions, medical institutions, I would say, well, hold on, we don't want to share the lift with anyone. We need to have our own servers. Then they would be what we would call a private cloud. So if we take the analogy of an apartment block, a private cloud would be a gated complex. You're the only one that has access to it. You are the only consumer of the electricity within that, the power within that, the heating, etc. And then hybrid is probably what some organizations would call the best of both worlds. So for example, you could maybe use Office 365 as your public cloud for all your emails, etc., but then you might use private cloud for your core financials. And this allows you to have that kind of hybrid model. So you'll be glad to know that is the technical session out of the way. But now that we've kind of explained a wee bit more about the cloud models, etc., I would just ask and appreciate your feedback in terms of our second poll, which again is my business right for the cloud. So if you wouldn't mind just giving me your feedback, that would be great. So 75% of the votes are in. So please, for those of you, it would really be beneficial in helping. Okay, polls closed. Now, what is very, very interesting is 78% of you now say yes, none of you say no, and 22% say not sure. So we've had a slight change in that, and it's good that no one said no, so let me work on the not sures. So, is your business right for the cloud? The answer is undoubtedly yes. Regardless of the size, sector, or location, cloud can introduce enormous benefits, and I'll stress can, for an organization. Not just the organization, but its employees and how they work, but also for those organizations that have their own internal IT teams or IT manager. Cloud takes away having to worry about the tin, and it allows those IT managers to focus on how can we improve business processes? How can we better use technology to drive the business forward? The question should really be is, what are the challenges in going to the cloud? But what I wanted to share first and foremost is there's bodies out there, and just to share with you where organizations are going. The UK Cloud Industry Forum, UK based, and they poll organizations, and it's a great website to actually go to for the latest updates and white papers, but they would poll organizations on their cloud adoption. And basically, this is the results from their 2017 survey. The 2018 will be out at the end of the year. And 88% of organizations that they polled are currently using the cloud, and on average utilize 3 cloud-based services. So don't just take our word for it. When we talk about their cloud adoption, between 2010 and 2017, cloud adoption has nearly doubled, going from just above 45% to close to 90%. And to put that into context, from an Xperience perspective, our on-premise deployment of servers, physical deployment of tin, was surpassed by cloud deployments at the tail end of 2017. So we are now doing more cloud deployments than we are on-premise. And I just wanted to share with you an example. We have a client, the Door Store. Stuart would love to know that his picture's up there, part of this webinar, but the Door Store are based in Belfast and also in Reading. They are a very traditional family-owned business going over just 25 years. And the key thing for them was they were just going through the typical refresh cycle. But they realized that for them, what worried them and kept them awake at night was, well, if our tills don't work on Boxing Day, how does that impact our brand? How does that impact our sales? How does that impact how we are perceived? And they realized that they had no plan B. So 2 years ago, they made the decision, a very traditional, selling doors and floors, a very traditional family-run business, to migrate everything onto the cloud platforms. And the way they would describe it is, it's like coming on and turning the lights on. Everything's always on and it always works. So where is it going? And again, I'd relay back to the Cloud Industry Forum. What they are saying over the next 12 months is a quicker and bigger adoption of cloud services. And out of the members that they polled, they expect 54% of them are expecting to actually migrate their entire on-premise estate over onto cloud services. So don't just take our word for it. Certainly the investment of 1.5 million that we've made in cloud services over the last 6-7 years has been because this is where we too see industries going. But what are the factors that are driving this cloud adoption? Why are organizations looking to do this? Well, interestingly enough, this is based on feedback that we've had with our clients that have made this decision, and also industry feedback. So I'd like to share some of the key drivers and what businesses are now thinking, because businesses are no longer thinking in terms of storage, processor, RAM, bits and bytes. They're thinking of the business issues. So one of the key drivers is, how do you, as a business owner or a business manager, view business risk? And this falls into two core areas. One is we call the 3 R's. Now, for those of you that are still with us, you'll see that there's four options there. But the 3 R's: the resilience of systems, the resilience of their infrastructure to ensure that they can still process deliveries, still process invoicing, still deal with customers. The redundancy, what if something happens? How does that impact the business? How does that impact our relationship with customers? How does that impact our service level agreements, maybe with key clients? But more importantly now, it's about reputation. It is about the reputation of the organization. How are we perceived? How do we look if we cannot access our systems or if we have significant downtime? And the third or the fourth angle in terms of the 3 R's is the security element. When you look back to that original slide of the data center, the ISO certifications, the security certifications that you're signing up to, it's a huge tick in the box when your data is securely stored in a physical building that has wire fencing, retinal scanners, nothing that we could actually try and envisage our own businesses. So it's the key, and in light of GDPR, that's becoming even more important. But the next thing is the people. The business risk, the people risk, and I touched on it earlier. The IT manager of today has certainly changed from the IT manager of 10 years ago. No longer should it be the screwdriver in the back pocket fixing a PC. IT should be looking at how technology can make us more agile. We've heard the term digital transformation. How can we do things smarter, better, reduce costs to the business? And it's allowing people to focus on that. And an IT manager today who's told there's a screwdriver, fix that, they will not stay in that organization. They will want to work for an organization that empowers them to expand their skill sets, but actually deliver real change within an organization. The next big area that we see from a cloud adoption is cost reduction. And when we say that, we're talking about moving away from the CapEx model to an OpEx model. I know as a member of our board, we like nothing better than to know what our running costs are year 1, 2, and 3. Moving on to a cloud platform should give you predictive billing. It's a utility-based model, so you pay for what you consume, just like your electricity, just like your mobile phone bill. So this de-risks the cost of IT, and it also allows you to look at, well, can we scale up if we're looking to expand, but more importantly, can we still scale down if the business so dictates? So when you factor in all the security, you factor in all the resilience, you factor in the redundancy, you factor in the security, and you factor in monthly payments, it makes it a significant cost saving over the long term. But again, don't take our word for it. We have the testimonial there from the Loan Market Association. Third key area of what's driving cloud adoption is organizations are looking for increased performance and reliability. What they want to move away from is having a myriad of different users in an organization. Someone's got the really beefy machine, someone else is using a machine that's 4 or 5 years old. Off the cloud platform, every user should have the same experience. You're running on state-of-the-art technology. If you've got a good cloud partner, they will have a hardware upgrade policy. They will be enhancing their technology. The technology investment no longer becomes your concern. You no longer have to worry about the age of that server in the corner. And in terms of performance and reliability, you should be signing up to a 99.99% uptime. You should be able to say, right, this is what I'm signing up to. This is what you're providing to me. So for a lot of organizations, their decision to move isn't just about business risk, isn't just about the people, isn't just about cost, but is also about having a much better experience in terms of our consumption of IT. The second last reason is flexibility. On a cloud model, you have flexibility in licensing. You're also part of a software assurance program, so you're licensing, you're always entitled to the latest versions. You have the flexibility of consumption-based billing. But more importantly, from an IT manager's perspective, you still have control in your IT. Physically, the servers aren't in your building, but you still have access to the virtual environment. You still have access to the Windows environment. You can still set up your users, so you don't actually lose control. You actually take away the worry of the IT, but have total control over your platform. And that flexibility means that you're taking that effort out of the IT from an IT manager's perspective, and you're able to then look at, well, how can we improve the business performance? And that leads on to the last area, which is all about being able to focus on the business. So for those owner managers that look after their own IT, having someone else manage that, being on a cloud platform where it's taken care for you, allows you to work on the business and not in the business. I know that might sound like a cliche, but you're taking a headache away. You're taking something that maybe keeps you awake at night. And not on day one, but when your servers are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old and you're looking at a refresh, you then have to think about the reliability, the reputation, etc. You can then focus on driving efficiencies in the business. Look at how agile can we be? How can we use technology to empower our staff? How can we use technology to gain new clients? How can we be more proactive and be ahead of the curve, whether it be getting into new markets or whatever? So the whole, what we're seeing, certainly in the not-for-profit sector, our clients in the cloud are basically saying to us, we can now focus on our stakeholders. We can now focus on delivering the service that we're meant to deliver. The door store would say, we can now focus on the customer. We don't have that fear of, will the tills not work? Can we not get access to pricing, not get access to stock because the servers are creaking? So, what do you need to consider to be able to live in the cloud? And that really should be our question for today. Well, to consider, without a shadow of a doubt, you need to look at connectivity. You need to look at having good connectivity. If you look at the analogy of a motorway versus a B road, getting from point A to B, well, you will always get there quicker in a motorway. BT, for example, offer BT net circuits, which are the equivalent of the old lease lines, but they're a lot more competitive now. So you have your own private motorway. You can then do some really cool things with that, where you can segregate 2 lanes for access to core applications, segregate a second lane for voice, a third lane for web access. So you're actually getting quality of service. Any business that is trying to live in the cloud purely on a fiber to cabinet connection, where you share that with other businesses, you need to look at that, look at the performance that you're getting, and maybe make the correct investment in the connectivity. The one thing in the IT industry, as with all of our industries, you genuinely get what you pay for. You put in the right connectivity, your users will have a great experience, performance will be excellent, and again, this all comes back to your reliability, your resilience, and being able to access the cloud. The second core thing that you need to look at is applications. The applications that you use, are they cloud ready? And that should ask that, if they're not, that should allow you to focus, well, the provider of that application, maybe they should be up in their game, because cloud is now where it's at. So if your applications can live in a virtual environment, they can live in a cloud environment. Third, as with your on-premise IT provider, you need to look at your cloud provider. What's their track record in the industry? What's their qualifications? What's their certifications? But more importantly, is it their cloud platform? Or do they white label someone else's? So if the engineer that comes to fix my PC, is he the same engineer that can deal with my cloud query? The engineer that has helped design my cloud solution, is he the same engineer that I can speak to if I have any concerns? Or do I have to go through a help desk that's manned in a different country? Or do I have to go onto a website to log a support ticket and not know who I'm speaking to? So the key thing here is look at the track record of the cloud provider, look at the track record with their cloud platform, how often do they refresh it, how often do they keep it up to date? Because this is all about your data. It's about ensuring that there's trust between you and your cloud provider. The same way that you have trusted partnerships with other key suppliers. Where's my data being held? How can I get access to it? And what if I needed access to that data quickly? So we have some clients where we will actually, in the evenings, over their connectivity, download to their site their data. So their site becomes the DR, the cloud platform becomes the live platform. So those are key things to consider. So to summarize, before we open up for questions, cloud is it. Certainly our experience over the last 10 years when it first started off as hosting and now has the cool name of cloud, we have seen a significant change in business perception. Certainly over the last 3 years and last year, 2017, was a dynamic shift where we were seeing more cloud adoptions than on-premise adoptions. Remember the 3 R's, the resilience, the redundancy, the reputation of the business, as well as the security element. Performance and cost. Your cloud provider should be able to give you the same performance for all users. You should be able to work out what your monthly cost will be. And you should be able to consume your IT the same way you consume your electricity or your mobile phone. Flexibility. The key area of being able to flex up and flex down. And freeing up valuable time for your IT teams to focus on the business, or your accountant to focus on the accounts and not just the IT. Look at IT as an enabler, not necessarily as a cost, but the key thing here is utilize your people to become more agile, more business focused, and look at ways that you can drive efficiencies. And ultimately, do your homework. Do your homework on your cloud provider, do your homework on their client base, do your homework so that you're satisfying yourself. It's the exact same relationship that you would have with an on-premise provider, but you're satisfying yourself that they're the right partner for you. And they can deal with the 3 R's, they can free up your time to focus on the business. So before we open up for questions, I'd like to finish on the poll. Now that we've considered the various aspects, and now do you understand some of the key drivers, do you feel your business is right for the cloud? The poll is now open. So we just are waiting on a couple more to vote. You know who you are. Okay, We will close the poll there. A resounding 94% have said yes. 6 have said no, so maybe it's to do with the applications, maybe it's to do with poor connectivity in your area, but hopefully the session has offered a bit of a view on where the industry says it's going, certainly where Xperience is going, and where our customers are going, with some of the testimonials that you may have read and the reasons for that. The technology is almost a given now. It's what does it do for the business. So that is us finishing up from this side. I am open to excessive clapping and cheering. It would be greatly appreciated. And now just any questions. So please feel free to type in any questions. I will read the question out for the audience and then give an answer. Okay, I have one here, John, wanting to know about connectivity. What John is asking is, if you do put in dedicated connectivity, what do you need a backup? Certainly our recommendation would be, if you can get dedicated connectivity, then quite often, or you should ensure that you have what they call a service level agreement with that. But it does no harm to retain a fiber to cabinet as a backup line should you ever have any issues. But remember, the one thing here is, at this minute in time, if you have an on-premise server and the server goes down, it impacts all your users. If you have connectivity and the connectivity goes down, your users can still work from a cafe, they can still go home and work, so you can still deliver services to your customers until that connectivity is brought up. So connectivity is key. It does make a difference. However, just by being in the cloud, it gives you that additional resilience should you have any issues where people can work remotely. But thank you for that, John. Okay, I have another question here from Stephen to do on costs. Stephen wants to know what way does a cost model look like? Well, typically, from our perspective, what typically we would do is we would look at the compute resources that are required, the IT that is required to run the core application. So if you're running Sage, you're running CRM, you're running a SQL database, they will have specific requirements from an IT perspective. And in our world, that would be called the compute resources. And that's a very simple ready reckoner to work out what those applications will need. The second part of the jigsaw is the licensing requirements. Who will need access to the servers, what antivirus they're going to need, what security do they need from the access. And typically you should then have two areas on your bill. One will be your compute resources and one will be your licensing requirements, because those licensing requirements, you need to get access to the systems. So typically you then would have your effort to migrate to the cloud, which would be not dissimilar as to the effort to migrate onto a new server on premise. So from a costing perspective, you should be looking literally at two lines. One is, what is my compute resources? And the second, what is my licensing? Okay, one from Jane. Jane wants to know about support. When you're on the cloud, do you still need support? Good question, Jane. Simple answer is yes. You still have virtual servers. Those servers still need to be maintained. Like you have with an on-premise server, you could have a corrupt Windows operating system that might have to be rebuilt. So most definitely you do need to have some level of support because they still need to be managed. The difference is you don't need to worry about that. A good cloud provider will be monitoring those servers on your behalf. They will know about issues before you do. So you should be able to have the comfort of knowing that other people are looking at that, worrying about that, managing that on your behalf. But yes, you would still need to have some level of support. Okay, I have time for one more question. Okay. Right, Philip wants to know about backups and backup retention. Basically, you can still run what we call the grandfather, father, son type of backup, but what cloud allows you to do is have different levels of storage. So you could enhance your retention policy. So for example, we have clients that will actually keep monthly backups and annual backups because that's what their business dictates. And what they can do is they will have that on what we call tier 3 storage. They don't need to access it all the time. And they just have their core applications and core data that they need quick access to on the fastest storage. What cloud allows you to do is to ultimately design the solution that's right for you without incurring all the large CapEx costs. It allows you to tap into technology, super levels of technology that none of us would contemplate putting into our own businesses, but just because of the size of the check that would be required. So that's us for now, folks. Thank you very much indeed for participating, for the questions and for the feedback on the polls. The video will be on the website in due course, and please look out for our next webinar. So again, thank you very much indeed, and let us finish.